this is something that I've encountered in a way that's really interesting lately, and more and more. It's this idea of changing yourself and how that works. And I think it can happen two ways. One way is you just, that's how you are from whatever life experiences you. And so you um, come from a family that does political advocacy work, and you want to do that or whatever. And so it's just part of your nature, your environment, your growing up, all of those things. And it just comes incredibly naturally. What I've noticed recently is I'm working with these kids that have everything. Like they're in the admissible pile because they have the top scores, great grades, they're nice kids, all of these things. Is that what differentiates them and what actually gets them in happens as we work together in this process. So it's actually a really cool thing that I'm becoming more aware of, that the way the college admissions process works with me, which is the one-to-one school targeting your top place, actually helps these kids level up in ways that their parents are astonished by. And so am I. So the kind of like outside, not organic rules that I impose on these kids influences them internally, which is so exciting. And it's an added benefit. You would think, oh, it's just so unfair that these kids get a college consultant and they have undue privilege and all these things. But actually what I've seen is that they are more and more using their powers for good because of what has to happen to get them into those schools. And so it's a different, like it happens from the outside in maybe, but the in happens. And then those kids are becoming more passionate advocates in areas that they might not have ever considered. And really that's translating into actionable things that they're doing in the world to make it better, which is probably the most exciting thing that I've come to recognize about this work, is that you can influence a kid's trajectory, not that it's just, but not by, getting into this place, but that process of getting in is transformative for these young people. And they need it because they're not getting this message elsewhere. They're not getting the message of greatness elsewhere, that you have to become great to be able to sell yourself. Now, that's probably a bad idiom, but to, have them see who you really are. And so the process of that starts by eliminating a lot of social media, for instance, and telling them how they need to focus their time and what they're, micromanaging these kids' decisions in terms of what they're doing over their breaks and times and things like that. And so just by virtue of doing that, these kids are growing. And also I know what to tell them to do, whether they're going for computer science, whether they're going for musical theater, whether they're going for anything, really. It doesn't matter the field. They're having to focus their time in a way that they usually have not thought about before. And it's not always so direct. It's not always so direct. It's not obvious. Sometimes we have to work through kind of the back channels to get them to a place where they have a compelling enough profile that they'll get accepted. Language is a piece of that, for instance. Like a lot of kids are like, well, I want to be a scientist, but I'm telling them like, well, we're the most science conferences for that particular, issue happening. And if you want to be a marine biologist, some of the most interesting work is done in a sanctuary called Pedagogos. And so if you can't speak another language, how are you going to interact with those researchers? Right. So there are things that are happening to get these kids authentically ready for that experience that they're not going to have They're just saying, well, I'm going to go to Harvard summer camp and work with a research scientist there. And what that will show the admissions consultant or the admissions team at the university is privilege, which you don't want. It won't show authenticity. It won't show initiative. It won't show the hard, gritty work. It will show privilege, that you had enough money to pay for your kid to go to Harvard, work maybe with one professor or two or whatever. And that's not really fair, right? They see that as, wow, well, great. They had all A's, they got this, they got to go to Harvard in the summer, and great. But if you don't have a compelling enough initiative, your kid won't get in. So sorry, I'm probably going for. I love Dr.